All right, I think y'all can hear me. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I am gonna introduce myself today. I'm Hannah Oakes, and I am a music therapist. I'm kind of gonna introduce myself in my presentation as well. I think this is the last series in the arts and spirituality, so wrapping it up with music and music therapy. So we're going to start off by just figuring out what music therapy is. So has anybody heard of music therapy before? Okay, good bit of y'all. All right, so there's actually a really impressive definition of it. It makes me sound really good. So I'm going to read it. Music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individualized goals within a therapeutic relationship by a credentialed professional who has completed an approved music therapy program. So a lot of people don't realize that that's actually what music therapy is. You know, there's listening to music, and that makes you feel good, but there's music therapy, which is a profession. So we're going to break this down, because it's a lot of words. So everything I do is evidence-based. There's a lot of research journals backing every intervention that I do. The music interventions that I use music with are to accomplish non-musical goals. So whether that's helping someone walk again after a stroke, someone working through anxiety in a psychiatric hospital. It's all patient-preferred music, so I don't just do classical guitar all day. I don't just sing hymns all day. It's anything that the patient enjoys. That's what research says elicits the best change. So I do anything from rock and roll, rap, country, you name it. And then it has to be utilized and administered by a credentialed professional. So I actually went and studied music therapy at the University of Alabama. And if you know my dad, he was the previous rector here, he was so upset that Auburn did not offer music therapy as an undergrad program. So roll tide now. And then after you get your degree, you go off for an internship. So I did a 6-month internship, and then you sit for a boards exam. There's a lot of training that goes into this because we work with vulnerable patients. We work in so many different settings: school systems, nursing homes, hospitals, private practice, which is what I do now. So we really need to be trained on how to perform music, so that's the music major, and then how to apply music to help people. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. Because a lot of people, after I tell them that I'm a music therapist, they're like, how did you even get into that? So it started here at St. Stephen's, actually. I grew up here. I spent a lot of my time as a youth at EYC. And there's a bunch of different pictures up here. There's a few from something called Special Session. Special Session is a camp for people of all abilities, and I volunteered as a camp counselor, and that's where I found my love for helping people. So I knew in high school that I wanted to do something with my life helping people. Didn't know what it was yet, but I knew I wanted to help people. And then you'll see pictures of me playing the guitar with Daniel Strandlin, who was my youth minister growing up. He and St. Stephen's encouraged me to play all the time. I got to play in Youth Sunday, which I did today, playing at Camp McDowell. So I really had a love of music and a love of helping people from like an early age. And then I heard about music therapy. I just heard someone say that, and I was like, what is that? That sounds awesome. So then I went and Googled it and realized it's a whole career, and that's how I found my love for music therapy and knew that's what I wanted to do. There's also 2 pictures up here. The bottom right corner is of me and my now husband. Before we even were dating, we were best friends in youth group. And then the top one, where I'm making a horrible face in the raft, is the weekend that we started liking each other at an EYC retreat. So St. Stephen's has played a really big role in my life. It's where I met my husband. And really fostered my love for helping people and playing music. I'm going to linger on this slide a little bit more and talk about Special Session because it taught me about vulnerability. campers coming and sharing themselves with me, what they like, what they don't like, what they want, and what they need, such as someone to help them eat, maybe someone to help them go to the bathroom, and then allowing me in to do that for them. And vulnerability has played a really big role in my faith from then, and I found that very spiritual things happen when we become vulnerable. So we're going to pivot away from vulnerability, but I want us to kind of keep that in our brains a little bit, and we'll circle back in a moment. When I was asked to do this talk, I originally thought, oh my God, I don't do spiritual things. I help people walk again. I mean, that's cool, but like I work in a hospital. I don't work in a church. You know, I thought, my goals aren't to make someone more Christian, you know? Sometimes it is to bring spiritualness into a situation. So I kind of got nervous. And so I thought, okay, I was like, it's not going to be spiritual at all. And then I was like, well, let me back up and think, what is spirituality to me? And so I started reflecting on that. And I came to the conclusion that spirituality is about connection. Connection to God, to something else, to each other, and to yourself. And that's really what it means to be Christian. God sent Jesus to be with us and to connect with us, and then allow us to connect with each other. So, spirituality and connection, that's really kind of what I'm thinking, right? And then I thought, music is like one of the greatest connectors of all time, right? Connects people to each other. It connects us to God when we sing hymns in church. And it can connect us to ourselves when we hear a song that we really love that really resonates with us. So I think that's a lot because music is emotional. It also changes the way that your brain functions, which we'll talk about later. It also creates a vulnerable space, music does. Do any of y'all know what the number one fear of adults is? I'm terrified right now. Public speaking. I'm not actually scared. What'd you say? Yeah, public speaking. Has anybody ever asked you to perform before? Yes. Whether it's music or like read something that you wrote? It's incredibly terrifying, right? You're opening yourself up to being vulnerable. Do you know what the number one phrase in the Bible is? Do not be afraid, right? So I think that's just really interesting that our number one fear as a society is being vulnerable, and then the number one phrase in the Bible is do not be afraid. In my job, I become vulnerable every single time I do a session. I'm used to it now. It's still scary sometimes when I'm performing a song for the first time, but I offer up my musical skills and create a space for my clients to become vulnerable. And I think that's the primary difference between having a music therapist do their job and pressing play on an iPod, right? I'm learning their favorite kind of music, and there's something very deeply personal about someone sitting down and playing your favorite song. In maybe the hardest time of your life. My vulnerability allows clients attempting to walk for the first time to have the courage to take a first step. It allows a 60-year-old man who doesn't sing attempt to sing his first words after a stroke when he can't talk. And it allows people who have their loved ones passing away actively, it allows them to allow me into their space during that time. So connectedness and vulnerability, I think, play a really big part of music in my career. So I went to the queen herself of vulnerability, and I found this quote by Brené Brown. "We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known, and when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection." So as I created this presentation, I realized everything I do is spiritual. Joke's on me. All right, so we're going to keep going with my story. I have a lot of stories that I'm going to tell, some funny, some heart-tugging. But I did my internship at UAB Hospital, and that was my dream job to work there. I worked there for 2 years. Common things that I did, well, typically I would be playing guitar and singing at bedside. Whether it would be working on anxiety, it's very scary to be in a hospital. I had a 2-year-old this week at Children's. I went to go see her, and she was sobbing uncontrollably. Her heart rate was 170. The minute I started playing and singing a lullaby, knocked her little head down, and her heart rate went to 120. So the power of music to change your vital signs and help you relax. Or playing at bedside while someone is awake but has a tube down their throat to help them breathe. That is very uncomfortable and very scary. Reducing pain perception. I often play the guitar and sing while someone is getting a painful procedure, whether it's a port placement or a burn change dressing at the hospital. Cognitive stimulation for delirium prevention. Delirium is very bad in the hospital. It's very bad for your brain. I once was heard it's called brain failure. And delirium is basically when you just get really confused because you're in the same space for days and you have no concept of day or night. So I would go in and play the guitar and have them engage in musical interventions and exercises to give their brain stimulation, keep them awake. I'm going to tell a story about something that I said that I now use a lot of times in sessions. I get tongue-tied really easily. I'll probably do it today. And I had a patient who liked Creedence Clearwater Revival. So I'm singing this song, Penny and the poor boys are playing, bring a nickel, tap your feet. And I sang, Penny and the poor boys are playing, bring a nipple, tap your feet. He was still kind of confused, so he didn't catch on. So that was good. But I use that, I become vulnerable with my patients, and I actually tell that story a lot because I get tongue-tied all the time still. And what happens is my patients laugh because it's funny. I said nipple. And then they open up to me a little bit more. Emotional support, playing music and helping people process and hold their hands through music as they get a cancer diagnosis. End-of-life support. I worked a lot in palliative care at UAB, and so I would often be playing as people were actively dying, and when they took the tube out of their mouth to allow that to happen. I have 2 stories. One is funny. Music, I have to be really careful about the songs that I choose because sometimes I just forget what words are in a song. But I knew what words were in a certain song one day. I walked in and there's a older man he's not really awake or anything. He's passing away. And his wife and his daughter were sitting in the room, and I said, okay, what kind of music does he like? The Bee Gees. He loves the Bee Gees. And I'm like, okay, I have one Bee Gees song. I'm not going to play it. It's not appropriate. So I start playing other music that's similar to the Bee Gees, that same decade. Then I'm like, okay, I wonder what has he ever been to a concert? That's a trick I use a lot to get people's favorite kind of music when they say, I don't have one. Have you ever been to a concert? The Bee Gees. Oh my God. Okay, he really likes the Bee Gees. So I'm like, all right, I play another song. I play like a CCR song, right? I don't know. And then another daughter comes in, and she says, oh my gosh, music therapy, he loves the Bee Gees. I said, all right, people. I said, okay, I've got one song by the Bee Gees. Staying Alive? Yes! And I sat there and sang, staying alive to a dying man. They loved it. I felt horrible. Sweated the whole time. So there's moments like that in my career where I put my foot in my mouth. That one, I guess, was really, they put my foot in my mouth. And then there are times where I have really special moments. And there's one lady that I worked with at UAB, and she had a glioblastoma, which is a very bad brain cancer. It's essentially terminal. And so I, with her, walked in the very first day I met her, and she said, "I love contemporary Christian music." And I said, "Great, I grew up Episcopal, so I know the hymnal." So I became vulnerable and said, "Tell me what to learn. You're going to teach me." And so she gave me, her all-time favorite is Lauren Daigle, which is a contemporary Christian singer, pretty popular. And then so she would give me homework. Every time she would come to the hospital and then go home, I'd have learned a new song for her. So now my contemporary Christian is on point. But she had 3 young children. She was in her 40s, I think I said that, and then a wonderful husband. And so I got to know them as she got sicker. And it finally came where she was transferred to palliative. And so I followed her over there and got to create a heartbeat project where we have a stethoscope and you record their heartbeat, the patient's heartbeat, and then I took it and I looped it, and so it was a steady beat, and then I sang her favorite songs over that and recorded it, and then that is something that her children and her husband have forever, and her mom, her parents. Yeah, so that's a really cool thing that we do. Very special and cool for her to know that was happening. She knew that was happening and got to choose the music. Coping skills. I worked in psychiatric at UAB, and I still work in it now, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. I worked at UAB during the COVID pandemic, and I was one of the first music therapists to work with COVID patients. And it was very scary not because I was scared of getting sick, but because I wasn't allowed to take any equipment into the room because we didn't know how to clean things. There's so much you didn't know. So I had to go in and sing a cappella. It's really scary to do that because I'm really used to hiding behind my guitar. And it's just harder to sing without musical support. But those were some of the most special moments, going in someone's scariest moment of life and loneliest, when no one's allowed to come in there, and singing with people, holding their hands, and providing that personal touch. I said that I worked with psych patients. I'm going to show you all an example of how I use music to help them process what they're going through. So I just want you to picture, I had a woman who really just acted so typical, right? I mean, I could have been friends with her in the real world, and she was in the hospital because she was bipolar and couldn't control her emotions. That's very, very scary. So I brought in a song by Ingrid Michaelson. It's called Be Okay. And something that I often do is a lyric rewrite where I bring a song for them. We listen to it, we talk about it, and so I'm going to play a little bit of this song so y'all kind of have a little inkling of what we did. I just want to be okay, be okay, be okay. I just want to be okay today. I just want to be okay, be okay, be okay. I just want to be okay today. I just want to feel today, feel today, feel today. I just want to feel something today. I just want to feel today, feel today, feel today. I just want to feel something today. Open me up and you will see I'm a gallery of broken hearts. I'm beyond repair, so let me be and give me back my broken parts. So that's a song that was originally written. No words have been altered. So we would go through that, talk about what does this song mean, get into really deep stuff. Are you really beyond repair? And then give them an opportunity to write in, what do they want to be? What do they want to feel? So over here, I just want to be understood. I just want to be understood. I just want to be seen today. I just want to be seen. I just want to be loved, or I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel free today. I just want to feel free. Open me up and you will see I'm malfunctioning, can't you see? And this person chose to keep the original lyrics. I'm beyond repair, let me be, and give me back my broken parts. I just want to be content, I just want to be content. I just want to be grateful, I just want to be grateful. I just want to feel loved, I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel real cool. Who would ever admit that? That's very vulnerable. I would never say I want to feel cool. I would just keep that to myself. I just want to feel real cool. Open me up and you will see I'm tossed at sea. I'm not going to drown and sink, so give me time and let me think. Something that every single time I do this activity, and I've done it many times, the same thing happens. I just want to feel loved. Always comes up. I think that's pretty human. So, continuing my story, I received further training in neurologic music therapy, and that is what I practice today. It's basically a system driven by the fact that music literally changes your brain and your body and the way that it functions. Something called neuroplasticity. It's this big word for your brain always making new connections and pruning away old ones. I like to make the analogy that your brain's like a garden and music is fertilizer. It's helping grow new connections. So that's why a lot of the things you'll see, that's why these things happen. I was at UAB, it was my dream job. Why would I leave? Why would I leave? There was an opportunity to do something really scary and work at Lakeshore Rehab, not because I'm scared of the hospital, but because I had never done inpatient rehab before. So I had always done bedside singing. This is where an inpatient rehab hospital is where people come after they've had a stroke, they're medically stable, it's time for them to learn to walk again, it's time for them to talk again, or a brain injury, or they had COVID pneumonia and they need pulmonary rehabilitation. So this is a lot more what PT, OT, and speech are doing. I'm just using music to reach the same goals. So so I leaned into that fear and I did it, I went. And it was an incredible experience. It taught me a lot. I really worked on motor function, communication, cognition, and pulmonary rehab. Motor, the way that we move. So using music to help people move better. When rhythmic auditory stimulation is an intervention that I use to help people walk better. The way that all of us walk is intrinsically rhythmic, which just means that your steps are symmetrical. So it sounds like if I recorded any of y'all walking, it would sound like the beat of a song. Our bodies and our brains have the ability to entrain to an external rhythm. So that means entrainment is when two things are moving at different paces and they sync up. So if somebody comes in and they have Parkinson's, typically they'll shuffle like this. It's just the way the disease works. And I will come in and play a rhythm and their favorite song, and immediately their steps become bigger and more fluid. And that's the way that their brain is syncing up with my rhythm. So that's some ways that I help people. Therapeutic instrumental music performance, you'll see right here, I'm working with someone to work on, she broke her hip, so we're working on lifting her knee up, and so I'm using these bells with her favorite song to tap while I play the song, and that's exercise. Pattern sensory enhancement, it's basically just using music to cue any type of movement besides walking. Whether it's someone who has not stood in months and using music to cue forward, back, and stand, right? Your music responds really well with rhythm, or your brain responds really well to rhythm in the musical cue. And I have a really special story about this. Sandra Norman used to go here, and I got permission to tell this story, but I worked with her at Lakeshore after she had been in the hospital, and she was really having a hard time standing, just staying standing. It was very scary, it was hard, and so I partnered with her occupational therapist to provide a rhythmic and musical cue for her to stand up. So one day I had her stand, and then I said, "What do you want to sing today?" And she said, "Alleluia, he is coming." And I said, "Great, I know that song." And so I started singing it, and as I'm watching her face, she was not with us anymore. She was somewhere else. She stood the longest she's ever stood. When she sat down, I said, "Where did you go?" And she said, "I was being a chalice bearer at St. Stephen's." So that was a moment where I connected her to church, right? It was very cool to see that. And the fact that functionally she did the best she had ever done. And here's a little, what are we doing on time? I'm going to skip the videos. There we go, communication. Music is very cool because it is a full brain activity. When you talk, there's just little parts of your brain that light up. When you walk, there's just little parts. Music is like fireworks are going off in your brain. That is why a lot of times after someone has a stroke, they can't talk, but they can sing. So I use interventions such as musical speech stimulation to have them fill in familiar songs. So, Sweet Home Alabama, right? That's so automatic to us, right? So a lot of times I'll come into a room and the family's like, they're not talking, they can't talk. I'm like, well, what's their favorite music? And then I sing a song, and all of a sudden the patient's filling in, the whole phrase. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Then, once we have some more speech, I can change it to functional phrases, melodic intonation therapy. I need to use the bathroom. I need to use the bathroom. It sounds really silly, and it is. But eventually, we're able to take away the melody, and then they can, I need to use the bathroom. And then we can take the rhythm away, and then they can talk. Oral, motor, and respiratory exercises. A lot of times people will have weak mouths after a stroke, and they slur their words. So this is simply using essentially choral exercises to strengthen those oral muscles. I have a funny story about this one. I work with Parkinson's patients. There's a lot of research on singing helping them improve their vocal quality, which is pretty incredible because it's a degenerative disease, and then maintain their ability to talk. I said, all right, so we're gonna sing, Mommy Made Me Mash My M&Ms, and he said, well, we need a new mommy. I said, oh my gosh. I've never gotten that one before. We didn't get a new mommy. Developmental speech and language training through music. I've talked a lot about strokes and Parkinson's and brain injuries because that's what I specialized in. There is so much research on autism and cerebral palsy and developmental disabilities. I use a lot now, I work with children, using music to help them develop their ability to speak. And there's emerging research that people with autism comprehend melodic conversation better than just spoken word. And I got to see that. It was really cool. I was working with a little kid who really was just wild. He wouldn't stop if you told him to stop, just did not really understand what you're saying. And I said, I'm just going to try something random. Now I sing ah, now I sing ah, and I kept doing that, and I finally said, now I sing, and he went ah, and his mom leapt up out of the chair. It was so cool to see that, to see him have control over what he wanted to express, which was ah, even though I told him to say that. We're gonna move on, skip the video. Cognition. Music, like I said, stimulates neural growth in the brain. I help people work on emerging from comas using music. I help them improve their attention to tasks if they're really distractible, children or adults after a stroke or a brain injury. Musical neglect training, a lot of people don't know this, but sometimes when you have a stroke, you lose part of your visual field. It's called left neglect. They have no awareness that this side even exists. So oftentimes they don't get to finish their full meal. They just eat a little portion, and then the whole left side of their plate is still there. So this is called Albert's line test, and I just put this in front of a patient before one session. And I said, cross out all the lines you see. And you see he crossed out 10. Not very much, right? So then I used music to help train his brain to tend to both sides. After one session, that is what happened, 27. So it's a very immediate effect, which is really cool. Associative mood and memory training, that's one intervention that I use with dementia and Alzheimer's. And I know most of y'all are gonna shake your head and say yes. Like we heard today in Sarah Dunlap's sermon, her grandmother had, I think, dementia, but knew the words of the hymns. Music is so deeply rooted in your brain, and it engages a lot of memory systems. So that's why maybe my grandma had Alzheimer's. She couldn't remember my name, but she remembered every word to Bicycle Built for Two. And it's a great way to not have to use medicine to control anxiety and aggressive behaviors. I worked a lot with patients as they were getting bathed at the hospital. For some reason, bathing just turns them off, right? So I would go in and play music as they got bathed to help them calm down and tolerate. And then we can still train their memory. You know, we can still use music interventions to help them attend to tasks better and remember really vital information. We all learned our ABCs to songs, right? We literally learned our ABCs to a song. So maybe I put in information into a song, their phone number, you know, or their loved one's names into a song so they can recall that. Whatever's important to them. Emotional processing. I still work on anxiety and, you know, depression and coping skills, but this time I'm really focused on the fact that that brain is changing. I have a girl that I'm working with. Every time she comes and gets chemotherapy at the hospital, I go and teach her ukulele, and she loves it, and she and her mom both said that her anxiety has significantly decreased ever since she started working with me, and she has to take less anxiety medicine. That is a huge win. Pulmonary rehab. I worked a lot with a pulmonologist at Lakeshore, helping people with COPD, COVID pneumonia, respiratory failure, anything like that, breathe better through a harmonica. When you blow in and out, it provides resistance to your diaphragm and lungs and strengthens them over time. Rhythmic entrainment. Rhythm really drives everything in your brain. So if someone has a really abnormal breathing pattern, I can help them regulate that with rhythm. CAT data, that's kind of a funny bullet point. The CAT is a COPD assessment tool, and that's kind of how I tracked people's progress. Every assessment that I do is functional, it's not musical. So my first meeting with people, I don't bring music out until I figure out what goals we're gonna work on. CAT is out of 40. The higher they score, the more symptomatic they are. Researchers say that if you decrease your score by 2 points, you've made significant improvement. And on average, my participants in this program decreased by 9. So breathing so much better. And it's very scary not to be able to breathe. So I took this very seriously, helping people breathe better. Let's see. So here I am today. I did something very, very scary, and I started my own business. And I never thought I would ever do that. Actually, it sounded horrible to me. I said, no, I'm gonna work in a hospital forever. And then something happened, and I kept getting people asking me how they could get music therapy when they left the hospital. I kept having random people say, how can my child with autism get music therapy? Specifically neurologic music therapy. And I thought, I'm really getting a nudge. I became vulnerable, and I quit my full-time job. And I started my own business that provides neurologic music therapy to people in Birmingham and Huntsville now. I have a contractor up there. I go to their homes. I do it through telehealth. And I do it through contracts with facilities. So I contract, I do site groups at hospitals. I go inpatient, school systems. I have private clients. And most excitingly, I'm starting a Parkinson's choir here at St. Stephen's. So thank you to the staff, John and Whitney, for helping that dream come true. Singing has been shown, like I said, to improve vocal quality, and vocal output in Parkinson's patients. So this will be free to them. I got funding, and it'll be for people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. Or whoever brings them to choir that week. Anyone can join, really. So what I want to leave y'all with is we took a really big journey. A lot of it was spiritual, a lot of it was neuroscience. But I get to see every single day how music impacts people. And I just want y'all to remember how special music is. And I think it's really a gift from God to help us connect, whether, like I said, to each other, to him or her, and to ourselves. And just the power of vulnerability and how music can allow us vulnerable moments. And that's it. I'm so good on time. Okay. Does anyone have questions or thoughts? Yeah. Oh, the business part of me. Connect with me. Logan, my husband, would have been like, you should have showed them your website. There it is. So that's how you can follow my story more. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts?
I would just like to say a big amen for those of you who've been around St. Stephen's for a while. You know I like to sing well. I totally believe in music, and quick testimony, part of my healing from the event that we had in June 2022 was listening to Vera Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Vera Lynn is. She was the British songbird during World War II. White Coast of Dover. We'll be again with the Vera Lynn. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
So your Parkinson's group is going to be here or
Yeah.
at St. John's?
So it's going to be at St. Stephen's. It's going to be down in the, right down below us. It's the most handicapped accessible little choir room. So we're going to be in the preschool choir room.
Is it like once a week?
It's going to be once a week. Yeah, that's what the research indicates is the best prescription. It's going to start in June. So I'll have more info coming out about that.
So like if somebody wanted to hire you, is it like hourly or
Mm-hmm.
how do you?
Yeah, it's just contract. So, so unfortunately, music therapy is not billable by insurance in Alabama. Shocker. Right now it's all out of pocket or grant-based. So the Parkinson's Choir will be grant-based. Yep. All right. Thanks.